A glass shatters on the floor. An owner has endured a terrible, exhausting day. The pressure has been building for hours, and suddenly, they snap. A voice is raised. A shout echoes through the living room. And sitting just a few feet away, the family cat simply turns around, takes a few measured steps toward the sofa, sits down, and begins to casually groom a paw. It appears to be the ultimate insult. It is the absolute picture of feline indifference. Humans tell themselves a very comforting lie in these volatile moments. People rationalize that cats simply do not care. There is a widespread belief that felines are too aloof, too independent, or too arrogant to be affected by human emotional outbursts. This lie is often used to wash away the sudden sting of human guilt. But this indifference is nothing more than an elaborate evolutionary mask. Beneath that cool, detached exterior, a massive biological and psychological storm has just been triggered. The cat is not ignoring the outburst. They are processing a terrifying shift in their reality, desperately trying to manage an overloaded nervous system, and silently calculating how to navigate the giant predator their owner has suddenly become. This exploration will uncover 15 distinct, entirely hidden ways a cat processes, remembers, and reacts to human anger. Once these silent mechanisms are revealed, a post-argument grooming session will never look exactly the same again. The moment the volume of a human voice crosses a certain aggressive threshold, the fundamental dynamic within the home fractures. The human is no longer perceived as the predictable dispenser of food, warmth, and affection. To a feline, sudden, loud, and aggressive noise is the universal, undeniable language of a predator. Their hearing is incredibly sensitive, biologically engineered to pick up the faint, distant rustle of a mouse in the grass. Therefore, a human shout registers as a sonic boom. Instantly, an invisible but violent spike in the cat's heart rate occurs. Their tiny adrenal glands flood their system with cortisol. They do not understand the specific words being yelled, nor do they comprehend human stresses regarding work or daily life. All their ancient survival instincts register is that the largest creature in their established territory has suddenly become unstable. The environment is instantly classified as unsafe. This biological reality brings the focus back to that casual grooming session on the sofa. The owner yells, and the cat simply washes its face. It looks like pure arrogance, but behavioral biologists classify this as a displacement behavior. When a cat is confronted with a severe conflict or a sudden, massive spike in anxiety, and they are unsure whether to fight or flee, their brain essentially short-circuits. To cope with the overwhelming, paralyzing surge of stress chemicals, they redirect their panicked energy into a completely unrelated, repetitive, and deeply familiar action. Grooming becomes a physical anchor. It is the feline equivalent of a human nervously biting their fingernails, pacing the floor, or awkwardly scrolling through a phone during a tense, uncomfortable silence. They are not ignoring the anger in the room. They are frantically trying to self-soothe a nervous system that is screaming at them to run for their lives. Sometimes, the feline reaction is even more confusing to observe. An owner might find the cat sitting nearby, eyes wide, purring loudly immediately after a conflict. It is incredibly easy to misinterpret this vibration as a sign that everything is fine, that the animal has already offered forgiveness. But purring is not always a song of happiness or contentment. Cats utilize a specific frequency of purring, typically measuring between 25 and 50 hertz, as an internal medical mechanism. This exact vibrational frequency has been scientifically shown to promote tissue regeneration and bone healing. More importantly in this context, it acts as a powerful self-calming tool. A nervous purr is a biological mantra. The cat is vibrating its own body to physically force its heart rate down and pull itself out of a state of sheer panic. It is a desperate coping mechanism, an attempt to physically heal their own stress in the immediate aftermath of an emotional explosion. Furthermore, felines do not just remember the frightening noise, they remember the exact geography of the conflict. Cats are absolute masters of associative spatial memory. They do not hold grudges in the complex, vindictive way humans do. A cat will not plot revenge because an owner lost their temper. However, they will permanently map the exact location of the shouting match within the home. If the argument happened in the narrow hallway near the kitchen, the cat will subtly alter their daily routes for the next few days. They might hug the opposite wall or avoid walking over that specific rug entirely. They have permanently associated that exact spatial coordinate with a sudden, unpredictable drop in their personal safety. That hallway now carries an invisible, lingering threat that they prefer to bypass until they can be absolutely sure the territory has returned to a neutral state. This intense need for spatial security explains another immediate, often misunderstood reaction. Right after a loud conflict, a cat might suddenly disappear, seeking out a discarded cardboard box, a dark closet corner, or the absolute highest shelf in the room. Humans often assume the animal is simply sulking or hiding, but the behavior is much more tactical than mere avoidance. In the wild, when a smaller predator feels actively threatened by a larger one, they seek environments where their back is fully protected and they possess a clear vantage point. A small cardboard box provides 4 solid walls of impenetrable defense. A high shelf offers a strategic, panoramic overview of the entire room. The cat is actively attempting to lower its circulating cortisol levels by retreating to a defensible space where it cannot be ambushed by the unpredictable human who just shattered the peace. Yet, there is a fascinating behavioral paradox that sometimes occurs. Instead of hiding, the cat might do the exact opposite. Shortly after a heated argument, an owner might walk into the bathroom, and suddenly, the cat slips in right behind them. It is incredibly tempting to view this as a quirky sign of affection, a quick, silent apology. But framing this through the lens of evolutionary survival paints a different picture. The cat is actually exhibiting extreme hypervigilance. The human has just proven themselves to be emotionally volatile and potentially dangerous. The absolute last thing a cautious, survival-driven animal wants is to let a massive, unpredictable giant out of their sight, especially behind a closed door where movements cannot be monitored. The cat is keeping a close eye on the threat. They want to ensure their own escape route remains clear and that the human is not going to suddenly reappear and shatter the quiet again. Eventually, the adrenaline begins to fade, and the long, delicate process of repairing the fractured bond begins. This is where the silent, deeply misunderstood language of feline de-escalation comes into play. An owner might catch the cat staring from across the room, and slowly, deliberately, the animal closes and opens its eyes. This is the famous slow blink. Humans affectionately call this a cat kiss. But in the direct context of a recent conflict, it represents something much more profound. In the animal kingdom, maintaining unbroken eye contact is a direct challenge, a clear sign of aggression. By intentionally breaking eye contact and slowly closing their incredibly vulnerable eyes, the cat is offering a calculated de-escalation tactic. It is the feline equivalent of a white flag. They are silently stating that they acknowledge the human, they are actively choosing not to challenge the human, and they are pleading for a return to peace. Hours later, the physical attempts at reconciliation might commence. The owner might be sitting on the couch, the tension having faded, and the cat approaches. The animal begins to rub intensely against the human's shins, pushing its cheeks hard against the skin. This is not merely a polite request for dinner. This is a frantic, necessary re-establishment of the family scent profile. Cats rely heavily on invisible pheromones to understand and navigate their world. When the human shouted, the emotional atmosphere of the house shattered, and in the cat's mind, their secure place within that territory was called into serious question. By vigorously rubbing their facial pheromones all over the human, they are trying to mix their scent with the owner's once again. They are actively trying to verify that they still belong, confirming that they have not been permanently evicted from the protective circle. Perhaps the ultimate, most profound test of this recovering trust happens in complete silence. After a significant period of tension, the cat might finally jump onto the sofa, settle down right next to the owner, and deliberately turn its back to the human. For a person, someone turning their back during or after an argument is dismissive, cold, and even rude. For a cat, it is the absolute highest compliment of trust they can possibly offer. Felines are agile predators, but they are also vulnerable prey. Their back is their massive blind spot, their most undefended angle. By actively choosing to expose this blind spot to the very person who was shouting just hours ago, they're making a massive psychological statement. They are proving to themselves and demonstrating to the human that they believe the environment is finally safe again. They have chosen to trust that the emotional storm has passed. However, the memory of that emotional storm often lingers, subtly altering how the cat chooses to communicate. Felines did not evolve to meow at each other in the wild. They invented a specific, nuanced meow dialect exclusively to converse with their humans. After a volatile emotional event, a distinct shift in this dialect often occurs. A normally chatty, vocal cat might go completely silent for a day or two. Alternatively, their pitch might change, becoming significantly softer, higher, or more questioning. They are verbally testing the waters. Because they vividly remember the harsh, aggressive tone of the anger, they adjust their own vocalizations to avoid triggering another dangerous outburst. They are incredibly sensitive to the emotional volatility of the household, and they will literally mute their own personalities until they are completely confident the baseline of the house has stabilized. If an observer wants to know exactly how much tension is still lingering in the feline's body, they only need to look closely at the animal's eyes. Long after the shouting has ceased, and even if the cat is sitting seemingly quietly in a lap, their pupils tell the undeniable truth. When a cat is completely relaxed and feels entirely safe, their pupils narrow into thin, elegant vertical slits. But when they are processing residual stress, fear, or uncertainty, those pupils dilate heavily, becoming large, dark pools. This is a direct physical manifestation of an adrenaline dump that has not yet been fully metabolized. The cat is biologically forced to take in as much visual information as possible. The wide-eyed stare is not an attempt to look endearing, it is a survival mechanism. They are intensely reading the room, searching for microscopic physical cues in human posture to determine if another eruption is imminent. This lingering internal stress often overrides their most basic, fundamental survival instincts. An owner might feel guilty and try to make amends by opening a can of the cat's absolute favorite premium wet food. The dish is placed down, the usual enthusiastic response is expected, but the cat simply sniffs it and walks away. It is a frustrating moment, and it often feels as though the animal is intentionally punishing the human. But a cat simply cannot eat when its nervous system is still trapped in a sympathetic fight-or-flight state. The process of digestion physically requires a parasympathetic state, a feeling of deep rest and absolute safety. The untouched food bowl is a glaring biological indicator that the emotional shockwave of the anger is still reverberating through the animal's body. Their instinct to stay alert and survive the perceived threat is completely suppressing their biological drive to consume calories. The exact same biological principle applies to their sleep cycles. An owner might see the cat curled up in a perfect, peaceful loaf shape, eyes half closed, seemingly napping the tense afternoon away. But a closer look at the ears reveals the truth. If those tiny, furred satellite dishes are constantly swiveling, twitching at every floorboard creak, distant siren, or page turn, the cat is not truly asleep. They are faking it. True feline sleep, the deep, restorative REM cycle, requires absolute vulnerability and trust in the environment. After a shouting match, they will often engage in a state of pseudo-sleep. They adopt a resting posture to conserve physical energy, but they keep their auditory senses dialed up to maximum capacity. They are physically exhausted, but their ancient instincts refuse to let them truly power down while the emotional climate of the house remains unpredictable. Occasionally, the attempt to break this lingering tension takes a surprising, highly physical form. A few hours after the conflict, an owner might find a favorite toy, a crumpled piece of paper, or a stolen sock suddenly dropped right at their feet. Humans naturally anthropomorphize this behavior, assuming the cat is bringing a thoughtful apology gift. While it functions as a peace offering of sorts, the underlying psychology is deeply rooted in predator redirection. In the wild, offering a distraction or shifting visual focus is a critical way to diffuse aggressive energy between animals. By bringing an object into the physical space between themselves and the human, the cat is attempting to change the narrative. They are trying to redirect the human's intense, predatory energy away from the feline body and onto an inanimate object, hoping to reset the dynamic back to play, hunting, and safety. Perhaps the most sobering realization of all is how these outbursts affect the feline's long-term perception of their human companion. Cats possess phenomenal long-term memories when it comes to critical survival data. They will remember the exact tone, pitch, and volume of a human shout for months, sometimes years. They carefully catalog this acoustic information. They use that specific angry tone as a permanent baseline metric to read daily human moods. If an owner clears their throat a little too loudly or laughs a little too sharply during a phone call, the cat might visibly flinch or quickly leave the room. They are constantly, silently comparing everyday human noises against that deeply cataloged memory of anger. They are not holding a grudge in the human sense, but their behavior is forever altered by the permanent knowledge of what their owner is capable of sounding like. Understanding this complex, completely silent aftermath is not meant to leave anyone paralyzed with guilt. Human beings are flawed. People get stressed, patience wears thin, and voices are inevitably raised. It is a reality of life. But realizing that a cat's apparent aloofness is actually a profound biological stress response changes the entire dynamic of pet ownership. It completely strips away the persistent myth of the indifferent feline. It reveals a deeply sensitive, highly observant creature that is constantly working to navigate the massive, unpredictable emotional waves of their favorite human. The true beauty of the human-feline bond is not that it is perfect or unbreakable, but that it is incredibly, almost miraculously resilient. These animals do not just absorb human anger, they actively, patiently work to repair the damage. They offer the slow blink of peace. They rub against legs to reclaim their family. They turn their vulnerable backs and choose to trust all over again, day after day. So, a challenge remains for anyone who shares their home with a cat. Think back to the last time the tension in the house boiled over and a voice was raised. How many of these silent, biological signs of forgiveness did the cat actually display? Did they seek out the safety of a high shelf? Or did they quietly follow the human into the next room to keep a vigilant watch? It is time to start paying close attention to the subtle apologies, the tactical retreats, and the quiet tests of trust they constantly offer. Because the moment a person learns to truly read this silent, ancient language, they realize their cat has been deeply, profoundly communicating with them all along.